I found a place here that I want to fish, and I'm going to throw a hair jig out here. And one thing I want to introduce, this is a new rod that has just been introduced by Lew's, and it's a Team Lew's Custom Pro. It's in the Ledge series, and it's a Ledge hair jig rod. And I've got this coupled with a Lew's Magnesium 8-to-1. I like a high-speed reel whenever I'm fishing a hair jig, and there's kind of one of two reasons. A lot of times I'll fish this bait with the reel, and number two, when I get a bite and I set the hook, especially in deep water, I want to be able to take that slack up to get a good positive hook. Now, these hair jigs have a relatively medium or light wire hook, so you don't have to really jerk hard on the fish. You just have to pull into them, but I like to keep good positive pressure. Now, this rod is 7 foot 3.5 inches long, and as you can see, one thing about it, it's got a little bit of tip to it. And with a hair jig rod, you want a little tip, because yeah, I've got several different kinds today. I've got on this one here's a 1/2 ounce, but you want a little tip to cast the bait out and for feel type purposes. And I've got this coupled with Suffix. This is 17-pound fluorocarbon. I'll vary my line sometimes 17 to 14, but I like fluorocarbon line. It's got low stretch, it's very sensitive. Now, there's a couple ways I like to fish a hair jig. Now, we're sitting here on a river channel ledge, so we're going to be throwing into about 10 foot of water, and it drops off into 30, so it's a pretty vertical or sheer type ledge. So I like to cast the bait out and allow the bait to sink straight to the bottom. And then what I do, once the bait hits the bottom, a lot of times I'll point the rod straight at the bait and I'll wind 4 or 5 times, and I'll just kill it, and I'll watch that bow of the line as it falls, and then I'll wind 4 or 5 times and I'll kill it. Now if I see that line jump, I've already got my rod in position to set the hook. And as I get farther toward the boat, you know, you're starting to bring it deeper down that ledge, I may only reel 1 or 2 times, because you got to remember, as you get closer to the boat, it's getting deeper and deeper and deeper and more sheer. And so that's one way I like to fish it. We've got a lot of current, so you know, I made that cast up ahead of the boat, and look, my line's already back here. So I'll reel it in, I'll make another cast. This time I'll throw it a little bit farther up current, because right now you can see that current coming around that buoy right there. I mean, it's moving pretty good out here right now. But I'll wind 3 or 4 times, kill it. Watch the slack of that line, and if you see that line jump or you feel a tick, you know, you got to be ready to set back and set the hook. And these hair jigs have a lighter wire hook, so all you got to do is get some positive pressure to hook a fish. I hit something there when I popped up. I must have hit a rock or something. What I'm trying to get that, in my mind, what I'm trying to get that jig to do, I'm trying to get it to come up off the bottom, and by reeling it, when you reel at that bait, every time you turn that handle, it kind of shudders, and then I want it to fall. I want it to fall as vertically as I can. That's why I kind of hold the rod parallel. You know, I throw the bait out, I allow it to hit the bottom, just like that. Reel 3 or 4 times, kill it. And I've got a bow in my line, but that's okay. I want it to fall on as slack a line as I can, to try to get as straight a fall as I can. Now, you know, in real life, we know that can't happen, because you're always going to have a drag of the line, but I'm trying to get it to fall back as straight as I can. And this is one way I do like to fish it. It's a pretty simple way. You know, a lot of times as I get out here to the boat, I may have to, as it falls deeper, I may have to kind of lean forward to allow the bait to hit the bottom again. So it's a very simple method. It seems like I do get a lot of bites that way. Another way I like to fish it is to physically pop the hair jig with my rod. Now, I'll fish it the same way, throw the bait out, allow it to hit the bottom, and then I'll pull the slack line. And I'll usually pull it pretty violently. Now that was just kind of a soft pull, but like that one there, I'll usually rip it pretty hard. And the only problem with this technique, sometimes you will miss a few when you pop them. Seems like with the reel technique, it seems like your rod's in a little better position. You know, as I'm allowing that jig to fall, I'm trying to let it fall on a slack line. So my rod's a little bit out of position. So sometimes when I go to jerk back, if the fish already has the bait, it's kind of a surprise to me if I didn't see my line jump. If you're ever faced with a schooling fish situation, you can actually use your rod and just wind and stop, and wind and stop, and wind and stop, wind and stop, and you can kind of keep that bait up, because what you have to remember is, you know, bucktail or hair, if you look at it in the water, you know, just by winding the bait, you look at that, it's got a lot of action. You know, you don't have to really jerk your rod a whole lot. You can do a lot. You can manipulate the bait very effectively and make it attractive to a fish with your reel.